Well, this is Sarah Armstrong with Black Cat Forge Welding and Leathercraft. This video is going to be on some basic tools I use in the shop, and I kind of started using right off the bat when I started smithing, and also some basic techniques on actually drawing out metal and moving metal, and just things to get the beginning smith, somebody who's never really blacksmithed before, hoping this can give you kind of a start to get at. And also to let you know some of the terminology that you might hear as you do your research. So first off, I'm going to talk about fullering and swedges. I've talked about swedge blocks, so I'm not going to go into swedge blocks that much. They are basically a concaved apparatus. This is considered a swedge. It's a handheld swedge. And it would be for coming down on top, usually doing tenons, and to give a nice smooth round. Now this would actually be used with a bottom swedge. This is considered a top swedge. A bottom swedge would be the swedge block, or even another swedge. That's not a very good example. So if this was down below, it would be considered a bottom swedge. This would be considered a top swedge. Most of the beginning smiths are not going to get into working much with swedges unless all you're interested in doing is tenons, spoons, some of that stuff. But it's the opposite of what I use on almost a daily basis, and that's called a fuller. Now, we talked a little bit about cross pins in the hammer video. And this is a cross peen. Okay, it is also a top fuller. This would be considered a bottom fuller that fits into a swedge. Also, our top of our horn is also a fuller, and I'll be showing some little tricks on drawing metal out on the horn. But you can use a bottom and top fuller to stretch metal out in a certain direction. Now, as I talked about in our other video in regards to fullers or in the cross pins, if we fuller this direction, we will lengthen it but not widen it. If we go this direction, not on a fuller but on the face of the anvil, it's up here for just showing, it'll go widen but not longer. Again, straight down will send the metal in all directions. Knowing where the metal is going to move is very important. Something I don't think I mentioned in the hammer video, probably because I'm going to touch on it probably in every single video I do. I'm not fond of big hammers. I'm not a big guy. I forge very long hours in the day, and at the end of the day I still want to be able to swing that hammer and make an accurate blow, which brings me to the point when we're working, a well-placed hammer blow will move more metal than a hammer blow that is extremely hard and wild, because you've got a greater chance of missing. You're not going to hit just right. Hammers and tools are designed for a specific use, and if you use it for that specific use, you will move that metal more efficiently with a well-placed hammer blow and proper heat than if you're just trying to muscle and really beat the heck out of that metal. It's not going to work for you. That metal moves because you tell it to, not because you've got a big hammer swinging down on it, or just hitting it regardless. You've got to know where you need to send that metal. So we use fullers quite a bit. Another one we use, if you don't have a chop saw or hacksaw, we use a hot cutter. Very good tool. I tend to like to use my hot cutter with a soft-faced mallet, so if I accidentally come down and hit the edge of my cutter, I don't damage the edge that I have on my cutting tool. Having everything where you know it is very important too when you're smithing, because that metal doesn't stay hot for very long. So you need to be able to know where everything is, set everything up before you start pounding. Another tool I wasn't sure I was going to like, but I actually found I use quite a bit. Now, if you happen to get a farrier's anvil, they have a lot sharper point of an anvil. This certain style of blacksmithing, German style, dual horn, it's not real small here at the tip, and I do a lot of detail work. So I made a traditional horn out of a hitch pin. It works very well, and I've actually found it very useful in doing a lot of my bends. It took me a while to get used to it, but once I got used to it, I found myself using this horn more almost than I use this one. Mostly when I'm doing scrolls or small detail work, as you're working it around, you can see what's going on. Down here, you can't. You have to keep checking to see if you've got the right bend. Something to consider. Not a real hard tool to make, but it's one that I'm starting to use a lot more. Okay? So now we're going to probably, let's see, we touched on that. Another tool you're going to use quite a bit would be chisels. You know, standard cold chisels work very well. There's some specialty chisels depending on what you're going to go into and like that. But for right now, we're just going to stick in with the basics. So right now, one of the most basic things that you're going to do starting out as a blacksmith is called drawing metal out. So I'm going to take a real good heat here. I'm not going to touch on heat colors. That's something that is out there. You can do a lot of research on the different colors and the different areas of where we work metal for different purposes. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw this metal out. Now, the technique I'm going to use drawing out is a lot of people have a tendency to draw metal out on the face of the anvil. Okay? Now, for anything below 1/4 inch, that's usually all it needs. You can do it on the face of the anvil. But if you're working 1/2 inch or above, what I'm going to show you here with this 1/4 inch, partly only because I really need to draw it out a lot longer. It's shorter than I need it, so I'm going to draw it out. But I'm going to use the horn of the anvil. Like I said, the horn of the anvil is also a fuller, and it will stretch that metal faster than on the face of the anvil. So if you're working large metal and you don't have access to a power hammer or a striker to be able to strike for you, pounding out the metal on the horn of the anvil will move that metal a lot faster. Then as your heat gets down, if you think you're at the length you want, you can square it up on the anvil. Your heat's gone. And we've still got a little bit of color there. We'll clean it up. And add a black heat. We can do a little bit final shaping. Now, I was shooting for 18. I was at 16 previously, and now we're at 17. So we grew a whole inch within that. This metal's thinner now. But that moved a whole inch. This one's already at about the length I need. But if we were to do that on the face of the anvil, it would take a lot longer because you've got two flat surfaces. The fullering is going to move that metal a lot easier and a lot quicker. Another basic technique that is going to be done is where do we work on the anvil, face the anvil. Okay? If you're making a taper or a point, there's two ways you can do it. You can work it out on the horn, or you can do the face of the anvil and work at the edge of the anvil. The reason we do that is if we were to work out a point here, we're going to be hitting our anvil with our hammer. So we need to bring it over here to make a point, or by working on here, this acts as a reverse of the face of the anvil. So I'll do both on that with this next heat. edge of the anvil. By coming down here, I can get a nice point. But you can achieve the same thing by working the point on the fuller. And actually, a lot of times, it's going to move a lot quicker using it on the horn of the anvil. See how quick and sharp that's getting down to? You can also use a rounding hammer to do a top and bottom fuller on the horn and stretch that metal out even more. I'm going to straighten it up now. I still have a little bit of heat. It's not a visible heat, but there's still heat there. Let's see, after all that pounding, what do we got? Almost 18. And I was shooting for 19, but we went 17 and a half. So with another ½ inch on that, I didn't have as hot of a heat. I need to find another piece of metal here. That's basic technique on that. I'm gonna, let's see if I can find my metal here. I don't have any here. A big problem that many have, pause it.